And yet another topic that's relevant not just to Nigeria, but almost all the developing countries is the issue of debt. And that formed the crux of the meeting that's just ended yesterday at Geneva, Switzerland. And that, of course, is International Debt Management Conference organized by UNCTAD. So today, let's find out some of those conversations that they had there, even though we've been bringing you excerpts of it on the program. We have joining us here Ms. Penelope Hawkins, Senior Economist, Debt and Development Finance Branch of the United Nations Trade and Development, UNCTAD. Thank you so much, Ms. Hawkins, for your time, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Great. So we did get some excerpts, some of the conversations, the issue of prioritizing development in infrastructure and human resources, which seem to have been overtaken by debt servicing. So tell us, what are some of the high points around these conversations that you had at the conference?
Well, I think it's clear from the attendance of over 600 people and 107 countries that debt is one of the defining challenges of our era. And countries are concerned, the debt servicing is high, and the access to grants is, of course, shrinking in this current world that we live in.
All right, so there was also the talk around how the structure of both debt and credit has changed. More private credits now, and that makes it more expensive. Could you tell us maybe some of the conclusions that the meetings came to in that area?
So, of course, you're right. The composition of credit really does make a difference. And what we have seen is that increasingly we as the UN, together with us other experts, are calling for more longer-term finance so that we can reduce those payments. You think yourself of how much easier it would be if you had a 30-year mortgage rather than a 7-year mortgage. And so this is what countries are facing. They have to turn over their debt quickly at high prices. If this was a longer-term space, it would be much easier for them to afford those repayments.
So did you reach any kind of solution, possible solution, especially for the African countries, the emerging economies, on how this can be managed better than what it is now?
So then several things. For the countries themselves, what is clear and what comes out is that it is possible for borrowers to have more agency in this space. They need to be managing their data. They need to be more transparent about what is happening to their finances and debt. And they are able to enunciate what they need to achieve that. Then on the international environment, there is increasingly pressure to say, how do we encourage, for example, multilateral development banks to offer longer-term finance to help ensure that development takes place in those countries, especially in Africa.
So, you know, sometimes these meetings come, great ideas are shared. What is the UN doing to, at least one way or the other, ensure that it goes beyond the talks, you know, to actually implementation?
So there's several things. We use our voice and our influence in international environments. But practically for countries, UNCTAD is one of the forerunning providers of a debt management and financial analysis system that is used now by over 61 countries, many of them in Africa, where we assist countries to manage their debt, data, record it, make it transparent, use it to engage with markets and with institutions around the world. And that process is moving forward through a brand new generation software, which we launched yesterday at the conference.
Tell us more about the software and how you can get adoption, especially from African countries.
So already we have many countries in both sub-Saharan Africa and Western and Northern Africa who use this product. For example, one of our most recent countries was South Sudan, that joined up to say, we understand we need to be tracking the expenditure of our governments, both centrally and generally. We need to be able to report that to our people so they understand what happened with the debt that we incurred, which sectors it went into, and what the consequences are for them as a country to repay and service that debt. Because remember, in the end, it is the taxpayer who is involved in servicing that debt.
So who can have access to this app? Is it the private sector? Is it the public sector? Who's keeping watch?
So this is primarily designed for ministries of finance, for central banks, and for even securities depositories, so that that data is all merged into an overview of what the debt components are in a country and how they need to be served. So what we do is we deal directly with the governments of countries. We provide this as a global public good, in the sense that the UN helps subsidize the cost of this production, and we install this, we provide the training, and we ensure that countries are capacitated to take this important part of their agency into their own hands.
Yeah, but if it's members of the public sector who are in government that have access to it, how do we ensure that there's actually the transparency? I thought it would be perhaps people or arms in the private sector, so, you know, we know that that interest is protected and not perhaps the government trying to just cover up and protect its expenditure.
So there are two ways in which we try and encourage much better publication of this data. Firstly, for most countries, they are obliged to report this to the World Bank. They have to do that in order to have access to any kind of concessional financing. That's the first thing. But secondly, we are creating, especially through this new system, this new version, we are creating the capacity for countries to very easily have public bulletins that can be easily understood. Because the key thing here is not just more data. It's more data that enables people to be informed and to actually understand the undertakings that their countries have made on their behalf.
All right, well, we'll see how that works. It sounds exciting, and we hope that it actually is used the way, I mean, I guess the incentive attached to it could be a drive for governments to adopt and follow the rules of that. Thank you so much for sharing this with us this afternoon after your very number of meetings that you had all through the week. Senior Economist, Debt and Development Finance Branch of UNCTAD, Ms. Penelope Hawkins.
Thank you very much for having me.